guys, welcome to another flow with me, Alex. I'm going to be guiding you today in this yoga practice. This will be more of a slow flow than you might be used to as far as vinyasa practices typically go. It's important sometimes for us to really slow down to, one, make sure we're in proper alignment, and two, to reap the benefits of the pose. A lot of times if we kind of just rush through everything, we can either, one, hurt ourselves because we're just moving so fast, we don't do the pose properly, and then it hurts a part of our body, and then therefore we're at a deficit. Or two, we're moving so fast that we really don't get into proper alignment, which then just doesn't give us any benefit to the pose we're trying to do. So I invite you to come with me onto your mats and embrace this yoga pose. We're going to start today in child's pose. So bring your knees to the width of the mat. Keep your bottom on the top of your feet and just slowly begin to walk your hands forward. Really still trying to keep that connection with your base on the top of your feet. And just stay here for a few breaths. On an inhale, we're going to lift up our right arm, stretch it up nice towards the sky, and slowly fold through for thread the needle underneath the left arm. You can bring your left hand a few fingertips further in front of you and hold it here for this nice side twist. Or, if you want, you can also bring your left hand around and touch your right hip. I'm just going to hold this here for 3 breaths, and then we'll move to the right side. Releasing the left hand back to the mat, we're going to push up, lift our right hand up towards the sky, and come back to neutral position, staying here for a breath. On the inhale, lifting up our left arm, stretching it nice and tall up to the sky, and then threading it underneath of our right side. Really making sure that your right arm is lifted enough so that you're getting the full twist. And then again, if you would like, for a deeper stretch, placing your right hand on your left hip. And make sure that you stay open so you receive the full twist on this side. When you're ready, releasing that right hand back to the ground, lifting up with your left, and meeting back in a neutral child's pose position. We're going to stay here for one breath. And slowly walk your hands back towards your seat, bringing your knees together. We're going to move into a tabletop position. So slowly start to place your hands shoulder width apart, nice straight line, knees, hips width distance apart. Again, nice straight line, keeping your feet flat on the mat. We're just going to begin to rock back like you're in a modified child's and forward, stretching almost to an upward facing dog. We're just going to start to loosen up the body. If you want, you can even walk your hands a little bit further so you can really get into feeling this stretch. This is good if you're feeling stiff. Just flowing from tabletop into modified child's into upward facing dog. We'll do this one more time, and then we'll come back to a neutral tabletop position. So what we're going to do is, now that we're back in neutral tabletop, we're going to just extend our left leg, and we're going to lean back into that. And you might make a little noise like I just did on my mat because I slid off, so make sure that you make the proper adjustments that you need and just kind of push back into those calves just a little bit, not enough to hurt yourself, but just enough to kind of feel that stretch in our lower legs. It should just release a little bit of pressure. And when you're ready, bring that leg back into a bent position and switch back to the right. Really feeling that stretch in the calves and also in our toes. That's a area that a lot of people don't focus on and think to stretch, but sitting in toe stand or just stretching your foot in this position that activates a toe stand really helps to stretch out those areas. And we use our feet all the time, so it's important to give ourselves time to heal those places in our feet, including our toes. We're going to go one more time on the left. Really stretching back, trying to alleviate some tightness. And then one more time on the right side. Coming back to neutral position. We're going to begin by slowly flowing through 5 sets of cat-cow. So if you want, if you're still feeling tight, you can rock your hips side to side. You can wiggle out your neck. If you want to rotate it a couple times before we move into cat-cow, just really trying to loosen up the body. But hand placements, knee placements should stay the same. Everything nice and stacked over our shoulders and our hips. In neutral position, we have a flat spine, nothing curved or arched. But when you're ready, on an inhale, we're going to drop the belly, looking up for cat, cow. And slowly exhaling into cat. Really feel your lower belly tuck, your chin should be tucked, as if your spine is being pulled to the ceiling. Inhaling into cat or cow. Really feeling that arch, stretch in the back. Exhaling into cat. We're going to do this 3 more times, nice and slow. So inhale for cow. And exhale for cat. Inhale for cow. Dropping the belly low. Lifting your eyes up towards the ceiling. Exhale, rounding the spine, feeling that stretch for cat. And one more time. Inhale for cow. Exhale for cat. You want to be in the middle of your mat. You're going to drop your legs back and just begin to walk your arms out. We're going to move now into puppy pose. Eventually your hips will be straight up and down, but just to get started and slowly move into this transition, we want to begin like we are going into child's pose. If you're very flexible, the goal is to try to get your chest completely on the ground. So over time, when we practice this, that will eventually happen. But if not, you can just hold it to this point. And we're just going to breathe here for 3 breaths. When you're ready, begin to lift yourself back up, walking your hands towards the center, and lift into our first downward facing dog. Now we're going to stay here for a little bit for the first breath or two. I just want you to make whatever movement you need to adjust your body and allow yourself, if you want to rock back and forth, really kind of stretch it out, that's fine. If you want to bend your knees, we're slowly easing into this. This is our first downward dog, and we're going to be here for 5 breaths. Make sure your hands and your toes are properly grounded and equally distributing the weight. The goal is to get your heels to get as close to the mat as possible, but you don't want to overextend your legs so that you're putting pressure and causing pain. You want to make sure you're shifting your hips up. Your head should be between your arms. Your inner thighs and inner ankles should be rotating outward so that you can properly feel this stretch. So just stay here and breathe for 5 breaths. With nice straight legs, we're going to slowly walk all the way up to meet our hands. So take as many steps as you need, trying to keep your legs as straight as possible. And when you get to your hands, just kind of hang there. You can take ragdoll. You can shift from side to side. If you're really feeling flexible, you can wrap your arms around your knees and just begin to embrace this forward fold. Or you can just keep your hands flat on the mat. Blocks are also helpful if you want to really get into the pose and you just can't quite reach all the way down. So do what is best for your practice. But just hang here for a few breaths. Exhale, forward fold. On an inhale, rise up to mountain pose and bring your hands to your side. I'm going to turn this way so that you guys can see me, because we're going to take Bikram half moon on the right and left. When you're ready, bring your hands up above your head. Clasp the hands, folding the thumbs over. Just begin to kind of shift to the right and to the left, really starting to wake up the body. And when you're ready, come to center. Straighten the spine, neck and chin should be elevated, nice and straight, looking forward, not down and tucked. When you're ready, begin to bend to the right. Your left hip should be stuck out. Your right foot and heel should be planted in the ground, looking up, bringing those hips forward, and hold. When you're ready, come back to center, take a pause, and slowly shift into the left side. We should have our left foot grounded, our heel should be grounded, supporting our weight. Our right hip is reaching out to the side. We're looking up, feeling that bend. Staying here for a few breaths. When you're ready, coming back to neutral. Take a slight back bend by dropping the neck and moving the hips forward. And on an exhale, slowly folding forward to our toes. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. We're going to plant the hands and move into our first chaturanga. So we're going to do this. I'm going to do this as a practice with you guys. If you're not familiar with chaturanga, or you don't have the strength to flow through without dropping, your arms and keeping them out wide, then move into a knees, chest, chin situation where we drop the knees, lower the chest, and push our chin through to upward facing dog. If you are familiar, just make sure that you're in a nice straight plank position. Nothing should be bent. Everything is aligned. Move 1 inch forward, drop down halfway, pushing through, and again moving into upward facing dog. Meeting us all in downward facing dog. We're going to stay here for a few breaths. On an inhale, slowly again, walk your feet, straight legs all the way up to meet your hands. We're going to hang here in the forward fold for 2 breaths. Try to let your neck just hang loose. Really releasing your muscles, relaxing your hips. On an inhale, raise to halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, rise up to Tadasana. Let your hands rest at your side. We're gonna move now into a couple vinyasa poses that we're used to hearing, like warrior one, warrior two, but we're really gonna slow it down and we're gonna focus less on rushing through it and more on just holding the alignment, okay? So it's gonna look a little different than we're used to seeing. When you're ready, I want you to step your left leg back. Your right knee will be bent. We want to get into a 90-degree pose before we get into our warrior one. But before we do that, I just want you guys to kind of rock a little bit, stretching out those hips, really giving us a little bit more flexibility, because sometimes we get into this and we're just so stiff and it's hard to really hold this pose and feel comfortable. You can also keep your left leg out a little bit wider if it helps for you to maintain your hips facing forward, keeping your right leg at a 90-degree bend. The left foot should be angled at a 45. And when you're ready, we're just gonna hold our hands. Shoulders should be resting back, away from our ears and neck. Nice and straight, palms can be faced towards the center. And we're just gonna breathe. When we slow down our practice and we really focus on alignment, we also build strength. And strength is important in order to get us through our vinyasa practice. When we build strength, we become stronger. We can hold things for longer. We can move fluidly throughout our different vinyasa poses. On an inhale, take a slight back bend, looking as far back as you can go, and then begin to frame out the front foot, dropping our left knee to the ground, putting our foot flat. We're gonna come into a low lunge, and we're just gonna move our top foot a few inches in front of where we had it to really kind of accentuate this pose. And we're gonna hold this here for about 5 breaths. You can also rise up, really feeling that stretch in our hips. You can hold it here or put your hands forward. On an inhale, we're going to push our right leg back to straighten it for half split. Coming in low, sweeping our hands back, flexing our right foot towards our face, slightly angling our head so that it's facing our shin. We don't want to be bent like this. We just want to keep a nice flat spine, but feeling that stretch in our hips and holding it here for a few breaths. If you need, you can place blocks on either side or put your hands down for some support if this is more comfortable for you. On an inhale, begin to lower that foot to the ground, moving back into a low lunge, rising up. Staying here for a few breaths before we move back into a half split. Moving back into half split, lifting up our front toes, flexing them back towards our face, head looking down at our shin, arms can be back or down on either side. We're going to hold this here for a couple of breaths. On an inhale, I want you to bend that front leg again and take your left leg and bend it back so that your left leg is parallel to the mat, okay? We're gonna move into a modification of lizard pose by dropping our hands to the ground and just feeling that stretch. This, you might not be able to get here, so if this is all you can do, maybe try practicing with one arm bent and maybe both. If you have to, you can stretch out this right hip, just giving a little bit of pressure. But we want to try to get as low as we can into this modification of lizard pose. And hold this here for a few breaths. We tend to hold a lot of tension in our hips, and most of the time we want to get out of this as quick as possible because we just feel all this energy surging to that area. And the best thing that we can do is to breathe through it. It's important to train ourselves to be able to breathe through any anxiety prone areas. This is one of those postures that a lot of people kind of want to get out of just really, really fast. But the longer we hold it, the more we're opening up and the more we're building strength. Lifting our arms back up, I want you to walk your hands towards your left knee. We're going to pause here and we're going to rotate our foot so that our right foot is now parallel with the mat. You can adjust your left leg if you need. And we're going to walk up and place our hands on our side. And we're going to begin by lifting our right arm up and just leaning over to the left. If you want, you can place your arm down just to feel this nice side body stretch. And again, just holding it here. Try not to collapse in the side. Really try to keep it open and up so that your eyes are focused towards the ceiling. Feeling the stretch from your toes to your fingertips. And when you're ready, we're going to shift back up, keeping our arms folded. We're going to rest our right hand on our right thigh, almost like we're in extended side angle. This is a modification where we're just stretching to the left, feeling that side body stretch on the opposite side. Holding here for a few breaths. Make sure you're looking up, really opening up as wide as you can. Avoid this or collapsing the right side. And on an inhale, come back up to neutral. We're going to drop our hands and walk them all the way to the front, coming back into that low lunge position, framing out the front hands, lifting up our back leg, bringing our front foot to meet our back, flowing through a chaturanga, meeting in downward facing dog. Again, take each transition as slow as you need. And we're going to do the same thing on the left. So just take a couple breaths here. And downward facing dog. And when you're ready, bring your left foot to your hands. We're coming up with our hands into Warrior One. We're going to hold this here again. Your right foot should be at a 45. And we're going to just straighten and drop. Straighten and bend. And keep doing this for a few rounds until you're nice and comfortable. You feel like you properly are in alignment. Your hips are facing forward. Your left leg is at that 90-degree bend. And we're just going to hold it here. give a slight back bend, and then bring your hands to your front foot, framing out the foot, and then begin to drop your right leg down. We're moving into low lunge. Now remember, if this is where you feel stable, please stay. But the goal is to try to elevate the top body, lifting up our hands. If you need, you can move your left foot out a few inches in front so you can really get into this deep hip stretch. It's a nice neutral hip opener. And our back foot should be flat on the mat. Arms are up, shoulders relaxed. Just stay here for a few breaths. When you're ready, inhale back to half split by bringing your left foot flexed towards your face. Your arms should be back. Your neck should be nice and long, eyes looking down at your shin. And just hold this here. If this is too much to hold here, you can always drop your hands, which will allow you to get yourself a little bit closer to your shin. Keeping those toes flexed. Just breathe into this posture. On an inhale, bend that left leg, moving back into low lunge. On an inhale, pushing back into half split. Remember, toes are flexed towards our face, eyes are looking down at our chin, our neck and chin are nice and long, not bent, restricting any flow. We're just feeling the stretch for a few breaths, holding our balance, building strength. Inhale, rising back up to that low lunge. We're going to frame out our hands and move our right leg back so that it's parallel with the mat. And again, we're going to come into that modified lizard position. The goal is to try to get both arms on the ground, trying to keep your body as close to your leg as possible. But again, if this is too much, maybe try one arm at a time, maybe use blocks. If you have to, if this is more comfortable to open up the left leg, whatever caters to you. But again, this is an anxiety-causing position. People want to rush out of it, and the goal is to just try to breathe through the stress. Breathe into our hips, allowing your focus to transition to the breath. lifting yourself up. We're going to move our hands towards our right leg, and then we're going to rotate our foot so that it's parallel, our left foot, so that it's parallel with the mat, keeping a nice straight extension out. With our right leg still bent, we're going to begin by keeping our arms out like a T. You can hold your right hip and feel that stretch, or if you need more support, ground down on the base. You should feel this side stretch from your toes to your fingertips, really looking up as far as you can, opening up that body. Try not to collapse in the side. When you're ready, coming back up to a T. We're going to rotate, resting our left arm onto our left thigh and bending over and twisting to the left for a counter stretch. Rising up on the next inhale, we're going to drop our hands down to the middle, bending our front leg, walking back to frame out those hands. We're going to lift into a runner's lunge, bring our left foot back to meet our right, moving into plank, shift forward 1 inch, drop down, chaturanga, meeting us back into a downward facing dog. On an inhale, lift up the right leg nice and straight, opening up, bend the knee. You can take a circle. You can go the opposite way. When you're ready, extend the leg and bring it through for warrior 1. We're going to hold here for 3 breaths, and then we're going to open up to warrior 2. On an inhale, open our arms nice and wide like a T. If you have to, make any adjustments. We should be pretty warmed up right now. We did a lot of hip opening stretches so we can really get into this warrior 2 position. Make sure your feet are properly aligned. Your hips want to be facing the wall in front of you. Arms nice and wide, looking over our front arm and really bending into this stretch. From here, we're going to hold this for 4 breaths. I know it's a lot, but again, focus on building strength, okay? Focus on the breath. It helps take your mind off of what is causing you tension or anxiety in the body. On an inhale, straighten that front leg. You should feel an immense amount of relief. We're going to keep our arms straight. We're going to shift forward, rotate our arms, and drop them down. We don't want to immediately just go into Trikonasana and collapse. A lot of people do that and really hurt themselves, not only in their hips, their legs, but in their upper body. So it's important to slowly transition into this position by straightening our arms, shifting forward, rotating our arms, and then easing into that side stretch. We're going to hold this for a couple of breaths. Really try to open up your body as wide as you can. You should not be putting any pressure on your front leg. Your arms should be weightless, but still maintaining control of nice straight arms. On an inhale, come back up. We're going to shift our right foot to make it parallel with our left. We're going to take a slight back bend, and with your hips, if it's more comfortable, guide yourself down for a nice stretch. Folding over, you can grab your ankles, you can grab your heels, or you can grab your shins, whatever is easily available for you to reach. If you would like to add some blocks to place in front of you to give yourself some support, please feel free to do so. But just hang here. Try to keep your back as straight as possible. We don't want to arch, we don't want to bend our knees. We just want to hang here with a nice flat straight back and feel the stretch happening everywhere. On an inhale, halfway lift, and then drop your hands. We're going to rise up. We're going to walk our hands to the right for Skandasana on the right. In this position, ooh, my knees are cracking. You want to keep your right leg on this side flat on the ground. So if you have to, adjust it so that it's comfortable. And the left leg is going to come up, flexing the foot. Now, you can stay here. You can bring your hands to prayer and just feel that stretch. Or if it's in your practice, you can take a bind around your arms and just really opening up your chest a little bit more. So you go where this practice is going to lead you, and we're going to hold this here for a few breaths. Just really breathing into this position. On an inhale, release, bring your hands back in front, lifting yourself up and moving over to the left side for Skandasana on the left. So again, keep your left foot flat, right foot is arched up, toes are flexed. You can keep your hands in front of you at prayer, or if you have a bind in your practice, and the bind might be easier on one side than it is on the other, and that's okay. So go where your body is allowing you to move. When you're ready, pushing ourselves back to the center. Going down for one more forward fold. This time you can bend your arms, maybe touch your head on the mat, getting deep into the stretch, and then slowly rising all the way up, bending our front leg, coming up to the top. We're going to hold it here in chair pose for 3 breaths. This is our first chair that we're taking. Make sure your knees are bent, your arms are up, palms facing the center, shoulders are back, nice and relaxed, and see how far you can get into this. See if you can lower the lower body just 1 more inch, and just hold it here, looking up, holding, breathing, and when you're ready, folding forward, halfway lift. Plant the hands on the ground, step back into chaturanga, nice straight plank, moving an inch forward and flowing through. We're gonna meet back in downward facing dog, staying here for a couple of breaths, and then we're gonna repeat this on the left side. On the inhale, lift up your left leg, bend it open, rotate those hips, straighten that leg out, and pull it through for warrior one on the left. Now again, we're warmed up, our hips are open, so these transitions should be nice. On an inhale, we're gonna open up to warrior two. Again, if you have to make any adjustments, that's fine, but make sure your hips are facing the wall in front of you, arms are nice and straight, we're bending into that front knee, and we're gonna stay here for 5 breaths. You should be looking forward over your fingertips, really bending into that knee. On an inhale, straighten that front leg. Feel that little bit of relief. We're gonna move into Trikonasana on the left, but again, keep your arms straight. We're gonna lean forward, rotate our arms, and drop down. We don't wanna just straighten and then flop. We also don't wanna put any pressure on our legs. Your arms should be weightless, okay? So when you're ready, keep those arms straight, looking forward, lean, rotate, melt into that pose. Keeping our arms nice and open, weightless in the left hand, really looking up towards the sky, trying to get your chin in line with your shoulder. Hips should be coming forward, holding it here. We want to lift up, and we're going to shift our left foot so that that is parallel with our mat, and we want to come into goddess. So rotate your toes to the outside edges of your mat. Try to get low into this position. We're going to hold goddess here, and we're going to pulse for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Straighten everything up. Stretch nice and tall into star pose. We're going to come down again into goddess and do a little ab movement. So on your breath, breathing in, exhale into goddess. We're going to rotate our elbows to touch our knees. Okay, and we're going to do this for 10 breaths. We're going to move slow because we're building strength, and we're also going to be building core with this movement. So when you're ready, moving to the right side first, elbow to knee, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, your legs should be shaking, 10, and straighten up into star. Feeling that release feels really good. You can feel a lot of blood rushing to some new areas. And on an inhale, drop your hands to your waist. We're going to rotate back into warrior one on the left. Bring your hands above, coming down to frame out our foot. Bring your left foot to meet the back and flow through into a chaturanga. And then come back to child's pose. We're going to take a couple breaths here because that was a lot. We want to give ourselves a little bit of a break. So when you've done your chaturanga flow, just meet us on the ground in child's pose. If you would like, you can also keep your hands resting along the sides of your legs just to take off a little bit of pressure. And we're going to stay here for 5 breaths. When you're ready, put your hands on the ground in front of you and just push yourself up to a seated position. We're going to move up and lay on our stomachs. Our heads are going to be just resting on the sides. We're going to get into some back bends right now. We've already done a few, very light, kind of warming ourselves up into this. But we're going to just begin by doing a few back openers, which will help us for our inversion. And we have about 20 minutes left of practice. And we're almost there. You guys are doing great, building strength, teaching yourselves that your potential of holding poses is a lot more than you think. When you're ready, bring your neck to neutral position, facing the mat. We're gonna keep our toes and heels together, zipper up the legs. We're gonna keep our hands, our palms touching the ground, and we're just gonna lift up into a locust pose, okay? So on an inhale, lifting up, trying to lift those legs and chest as high as you can go. One more breath, and drop down. Rest your left cheek on the mat. Loosen up your hands, let them rest on either side, and just take a breath. This time, we're gonna clasp our hands behind our back into ship's figurehead, same position, just different arm variations. And again, the goal is to lift the chest and the legs looking up as high as you can. Okay, so when you're ready, get your hands together, clasp behind the back, toes and heels together, zippering up the legs. On an inhale, we're gonna lift everything up and hold. So when you're ready, inhale, lift up. Try to get up as high as you can, lifting that chest, and release. Rotating our cheeks, resting our right cheek on the mat, letting our arms go. If you need, you can rock your knees side to side for a little relief in the back. We're gonna set up for bow pose, where we grab the outside of our ankles. We wanna make sure that we're using our inner thighs to work this, not our glutes, but our inner thighs, and we're gonna lift with our legs up, and our stomachs should also try to lift off of the mat. The goal is to get as high as you can, but this is a practice, so it'll take us a little bit to really get that perfect ideal form. More importantly, just make sure that your knees don't come out real wide. You want to keep them in line with your body. You want to keep your hands on the outside edges of your ankles, and you want to point your toes, or you can kick up into your legs, and the more you do that, lifting with your inner thighs, the higher you're gonna get. So get into position, keeping a neutral spine. We want to kick into the legs, and that will allow our front body to lift up as well. So when you're ready, on the next inhale, lift with those legs, using those inner thighs, pulling up your chest, Keep lifting, working the legs, and release. Left cheek on the ground. Again, if you need to sway the legs side to side, that's fine. We're going to do another bow. So when you're ready, get your arms in place, grabbing the outside ankles. Again, we want to lift with our legs, using our inner thighs, not our glutes, to lift us. On an inhale, kick up into those legs, and then look back with your eyes to see how far you can go. Keep lifting, and release. Right cheek to the mat. Bending the knees. Neutral position, we're going to push ourselves up. We're going to stretch out our legs because we've been doing a lot with our legs today that we just want to give them some time to really relax. So I want you guys to come to the beginning of hero's position. You want to spread your legs a little bit wide so that your base can be completely flat on your mat. And if this is comfortable for you and you feel like this is where you want to stay today, that's fine. Maybe you can try bringing your hands to the back of the mat and kind of walking them out to feel the stretch. Or if you're really feeling like you can push yourself a little bit more, hold on to your feet and walk your hands down. The goal here though is not to lift your knees up off the mat. And then you can keep your hands above your head, holding your hands with your elbows, opposite elbows. And just breathe into this posture for a few breaths. When you're ready, slowly pull yourself back up, just like the way we started. We're going to sit on our legs, just like this, and we're going to take rabbit pose. Now in rabbit, you want to kind of grip your heels, keeping your back nice and straight. And you're just going to slowly come into drop your head on the floor, make sure that your forehead is resting on your mat. You want to try to get as close to your knees as possible. But again, don't overdo it so that you're hurting yourself. While holding your heels, you're going to lift your hips up. And we're just going to stay here, taking a nice little stretch in our back and our neck. Try to really get your hips as straight as they can, getting your forehead as close to your knees as possible, but lifting with your hips. Keeping your toes flat on the ground. And breathe. And on an exhale, lowering back down. Coming to a seat. We're going to lift up now onto our knees, taking 2 camel poses. So for the first one, just keep your knees about 6-inch distance apart. And we're going to place our hands at the base of our spine, fingertips pointing up. Try to keep your shoulders in. And on an inhale, you're going to push your hips forward, drop your head back, and stay into this position. Now you can stay here if this is comfortable. And continue just to breathe. Or if you'd like a more advanced version, you can drop your right hand down to meet your right ankle, and same to your left. But just remember, you're pushing your hips forward, lifting your chest up, and just breathing. This is a tough pose to hold, so it's really important that you're following the cues and keeping in the alignment. And slowly just come out the same way that you came in, and you can rest for a second on your legs. We're going to do this again. Hopefully this time getting a little bit deeper into our back bend. This is really going to help set us up for an inversion. When you're ready, coming back up onto your knees. If you'd like to get a little bit deeper into it, you can spread your knees a little bit wider, or you can keep the same position that we were. Again, placing your hands, fingertips facing up on the back, right below your bottom of your spine, where your sits bones start. And just begin to push your hips forward, lifting your chest up and bending back. You almost want to get your head into the middle of your spine. So continue to think chest up, hips forward, really getting deep into this back bend. And we're going to hold this here for a few breaths. Slowly coming back out, and just go into a child's pose to give our back a nice little stretch. Keeping your arms extended straight out in front of you, really feeling your back muscles. When you're ready, pushing yourself back up, swing your legs around and come to a seated position. We're going to take an inversion pose here. We're going to do shoulder stand. Feel free, if you have been practicing inversions for a while and you're comfortable with doing headstand or even handstand, whatever suits your body best. But for those of you that want to follow along in this practice, I'm going to be taking a inversion that is shoulder stand, and then we'll move into plow and deaf yogi. Okay, so getting your legs flat out in front of you, we're going to shift a little bit forward to lay our back flat on the mat. We're going to slowly bring our knees in, lifting our body up, keeping our shoulders and arms right underneath of our legs. We want to point our toes so that everything is in a nice straight line. And we're just going to hold this here for 10 breaths. It's always good to get upside down. It helps recirculate the blood, flushing out areas we don't always get to. When you're ready, we're going to drop our knees down, placing our toes overhead. You can either keep your hands here or support your lower back. If you have to, you could have a slight bend in the knees. Again, whatever's gonna suit you best. The idea is to keep your legs as straight as possible overhead and gripping the base with your hands behind your lower back. I'm gonna stay here for a couple breaths. Moving into Def Yogi, so dropping your knees right below your ears, giving some bend into those legs. Staying here for 2 breaths. You can rotate your ankles and slowly start to let the body fall down back to the mat. Now we're going to take a counter pose, fish pose. You can use blocks for this if you'd like, but for this practice I'm going to show you how to do it without the blocks. So come up to a somewhat seated position where we're taking our hands and kind of placing them right underneath of our lower back. We want to keep our shoulders in, a little bit bent to support us. Our toes are going to be flat out in front of us, pointing towards the front, and we're just going to take our head and shift it back, keeping our neck nice and long, our throat is open, our chest is up, giving us a little bit of an arch in the spine. And just holding it here. Breathing into this. Inhale. Come up to seated position. Keep your legs nice and long. We're going to take a couple variations of forward fold. So begin by bending the left leg into the right thigh, keeping the right foot straight, feet flexed back in front of us. We're going to lift our arms up, kind of twist the body over to your right side, and begin to lean forward, keeping a nice straight, flat back. We want to keep the back nice and flat to really feel the benefits of this stretch. Keep your elbows kind of close into your body, bending down towards, moving your chest towards your shin, holding it there. On an inhale, rising up, switch out the legs. Right leg is bent, touching the inner left thigh. Left foot is straight, pointing back to us. Arms up, raise, twist a little bit to the left. Bend towards our left foot, keeping our chest nice and flat. Chest should be leaning towards our shin, feeling that nice release in our hamstrings and our calves, even on our right side, in our hip. And release. Coming up, straighten both feet out. We want to take yogi toe lock with our big toes, so raise your arms up, kind of fold forward, still keeping a flat back. Elbows are bent, tucked in, facing towards the ground, and moving our chest to the wall in front of us. We just want to feel that bend. You should feel this in your lower back. You should feel this in your hamstrings and your quads. Really stretching out all those ligaments that we've really worked today. here. Getting a little bit lower, trying to see how low we can get while still keeping a flat back. And on an inhale, release. We're going to take a butterfly pose, so bring the soles of your feet together. And we're just going to begin by pressing our elbows into the tops of our knees and just slowly feeling that opening starting to happen. We've been working our hips quite a lot today, so we want to just do some final stretching in this area to release any tension we might still have. If you'd like a deeper variation, you can slide your hands underneath of your legs, which will push your body forward, and this will really kind of open up, allow you to get a little bit deeper. You can also take your feet and kind of open the feet up like a book and bend into this position. If kind of going underneath and threading your hands through that way is just too difficult. When you're ready, sitting back up, straightening your legs out, and coming onto your backs for some final stretching before we move into Savasana. We're going to bring our right knee into our chest, trying to avoid our ribs, keeping your left leg nice and relaxed. You can rotate your ankles and just hold it in here. Make sure to keep a straight spine though. You want both your shoulder blades touching the back of your mat. You don't want to be off on an angle with your left shoulder blade lifted in the air. And release the right. Keeping the right leg nice and relaxed, bringing the left knee in, off of the ribs. Keeping both shoulders on the mat, elbows tucked in. And release. Bring both knees into our chest. Hug your knees nice and tight. Releasing the legs, we're going to hold on to the right leg with our right hand out straight onto the side and twist open the body, looking over our right arm for supine twist. Really breathing into any areas that we still hold, any discomfort. Coming back to center, bending our left knee, pulling it across our body with our right arm, stretching out our left, feeling that nice twist, keeping our shoulders still on our mats. Coming back to a neutral position. You can bring your legs in for happy baby and feel free to rock back and forth to massage out the lower bottom of your back. You can extend one leg and keep the other one bent for any final stretching before we settle into Savasana. You can also straighten both legs, bend, stretch. Pull your legs down. And when you're ready, releasing into our final pose, keeping our feet extended to the width of our mat, falling open, same with our arms open on either side, keeping our palms up, facing the ceiling, and begin to just shut down the body. We're resting, we've made it, We worked really hard today building that strength, building that fire within us. And now it's time to give ourselves a few minutes to just relax and let the body heal. Begin to wiggle your toes and fingers, bringing some life back into the body. You can roll your wrist and your ankles. And when you're ready, move to the right side of your body and pause here for a few breaths. Slowly pushing yourself back up, make your way to seated position, keeping our eyes closed. We want to bring our hands to center in prayer, bowing our heads and acknowledging what a beautiful practice we just shared together. We really don't know the true limits of how far we can go until we push ourselves to those limits. And this practice was all about that, slowing it down and really focusing on building strength and going for long increments of time that we might not have realized we could do. So thank you for participating with me today in this practice. It was lovely to guide you. I wish you all happiness and success in all of your endeavors, and feel free to join me back here on the mat. Namaste. Thank you.